Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Matt and welcome to my travel vlog. This week we're hiking up to one of the highest points in Hungary and we're heading over to Prague to enjoy some of the spookiness of the city and some of the best beer in the world. So yeah, stay tuned.
We're in the beautiful hills of Buda right now. We're in a nice little park. We're about to go hiking up a mountain. It's really nice out.
So we were itching to get out of the city. We traveled to a lot of cities and we stay in Budapest. So we ended up planning a trip to hike to the top of Elizabeth Outlook. Now this is one part about Budapest that's extremely underrated. None of my friends have gone there. Nobody I know really has been there. But being able to just go away from the city and hike up in the hills of Buda, really a great experience. I kind of forget what it's like to have fresh air being in the city so often. So when we got to the top, the view was magnificent. We could see over all of Budapest pretty much and around Hungary itself, just the rolling hills, and it was great being there. It's a little bit of a trip to get up to this location from where we are at least, but definitely something I highly recommend and something I believe if you're staying over a week in Budapest that you should go just to be able to have such a great view. Coming to you from the part of Hungary they don't normally show. Then we were quickly off to Prague for our big trip of the week. We did this trip through Erasmus ESN, and that's basically a travel organization run through some of the schools. Immediately when we got there, Erasmus started one of their many mess-ups of the trip. We ended up walking a couple blocks the wrong direction, having to turn back, and then we were waiting in line to check in for a hostel for quite a bit.
So we just arrived here in Prague, in the Czech Republic. We just checked into our hostel.
Check.
Beer consumption capital of the world.
So going to the Czech Republic is something that was also really cool for me because I'm actually Czech. My last name Brdlik is Czech and my grandpa was originally from Bohemia, his family. I honestly, since I got there, fell in love with Prague. It's such a historic and cool city to be in. All the streets pretty much are cobblestone and every single block you go down looks extremely picturesque. It just has an energy that cannot be described.
It's really nice and very similar to Vienna. Lots of gold ornamenting.
Yeah, lots and lots of painted buildings as well.
Yeah.
Saw pink one, saw blue one. There's a pink and green one right there.
But
oh yeah,
we're here.
I'm mad about it, but I'm not going to say that I'm mad about it.
But you just did.
Did I?
Now one thing I have to explain that I didn't really know too much is that Prague is known for its nightlife. It actually has some of the best beer in the world, and you can tell just walking around at night. At least where I was staying in the city center, the streets were crowded with people constantly. Somebody who's not a big drinker, this is something that may deter you a little bit. In my opinion, even if you're not a drinker, it's worth putting up with.
See which one's better right here, right now.
Well, that's very good. I have to give it a solid 6.9.
Whoa!
Everything else.
As a beer drinker myself, I was super happy being able to experience this part of the city. It was awesome being almost like Budapest, being able to have really cheap and good beer to drink all of the time. One thing we also noticed quite quickly is that Prague has a very interesting weed culture. Prague is a very liberal city. It has prostitution and whatnot as well. We were a little bit confused because we saw all of these, you know, weed shops and stuff like that. Just the convenience stores all had weed products and bongs and things out the window and whatnot. We were confused. We thought you can actually buy weed here. It's strange because this is actually a tourist trap. And one thing I didn't enjoy about Prague, I don't know why they do this. It's just to trick people, I guess. Now when we were out, we happened to stumble upon one of the main plazas, and we didn't know anything about it at the time, but we came across this church. Now this was the Church of the Lady Before Our Tin, I believe it is. And I have to tell you, it is spooky, and at night, it's eerie.
This shit makes me want to steal and kill. Plans for tomorrow. Buy a Ouija board, go in Spooksville. Welcome to hell!
The streets are cobblestone, there's tons of historic monuments around, there's bats flying around the sky, it's October, the air is crisp. I fell in love with it. I absolutely couldn't get enough. This kind of gothic architecture is stuff that I thrive on. It wasn't long before we were back in the daytime, so we actually went inside the Church Before Tin, and it was the best church I've ever been inside. The interior, we weren't actually allowed to film, which is a disappointment, but I still snuck some footage. It was a contrast between black and gold. The style was amazing. It's something that you have to check out. Of course, it's one of the most popular tourist destinations, so there's tons of people in there, but make the time and go and see it. We also went across the street to St. Nicholas's Church. Now this is a completely different tone. It's definitely not creepy. It's still a really cool church nonetheless. It's very beautiful with extremely nice chandelier and gorgeous paintings all over it. There was even a painting of a lion, which, I mean, a lion in the church is awesome, and more churches need paintings of lions.
Dude, Prague stole my heart today. Some of the best beer in the world here. It's fucking gorgeous. Oh my god, dude, I'm on cloud 9, just loving life. Definitely coming back here like 2 more weekends while I'm in Europe.
Phenomenal, just phenomenal city. Everything about it. It's beautiful, cheap, good food, good beer, good people. Can't ask for anything more. It's incredible.
Where the wizards at, man? Where the wizards at?
Now, I knew Prague was touristy when I got there, but it wasn't until I got to Charles Bridge that I realized just how touristy it was. This huge bridge spanning across the entire river was absolutely slammed with tourists. I had to walk through it twice. The first time it was acceptable, the second time I was already annoyed, and I can imagine for a local just how annoying this could be. The bridge itself is cool to be on, but personally, just being in a crowd of tourists really isn't my thing, so it kind of turned me off of the experience. Quickly on the other side of the city, we visited the Lennon Wall. Now this is one thing you hear a lot about, but again, personally, not my favorite thing. It is a cool spot if you have extra time to fit it in your schedule if you're visiting there. Pretty much it's just some spray painting on a wall with some cool paintings and whatnot. If you're a big Lennon fan, you should definitely check it out, and again, if you have extra time, but not something that you should kill yourself if you haven't seen it all. So one of the really cool things we got to do was the Strahov Monastic Brewery. This was something that we just heard of from a local that we met up and talked a little bit to. Man, was it really cool.
This beer is brewed by monks, and it started off in 1352. Passed on their recipe to the place we're at now, and it's exclusively sold here, nowhere else, and just enjoying a good old beer.
Pretty damn good. Oh yeah. Pretty damn good.
When I heard this, I expected a completely different environment, but it's actually in a very, very nice hotel. It's kind of a contrast between something that's been so traditional and something that's so new. But the hotel itself is extremely nice. They had this outdoor plaza that was super relaxing to be in. It was a great spot to sit down for 30 minutes. It's almost like a bucket list item before you knew you wanted to do it. Crossing off beer brewed by monks was really cool, and it's just those type of things that are super memorable. Next, we made the obvious climb up to Prague Castle. Now, the Czech Republic, for those of you who don't know, has the most castles out of any country in Europe. The Prague Castle is the biggest castle in Europe. When you're climbing up the steps, it does take the wind out of you. It just makes you work for the excellent view over Prague itself. It's a great spot to take photos and just see all the city that there is to see. Definitely an extremely touristy spot, as you can guess, but that did not deter me one bit. Now, there are some great churches up at the top of Prague Castle, and the most well-known one is St. Vitus Church. Now, this church is one that you've probably seen in photos before because it's one of the most famous in Europe. The architecture is just stunning. I don't know how that could have been crafted several hundred years ago. It's one of the places where you can just stand and stare at it, and new details keep emerging the more and more you look. Inside, as you can guess, the church was packed to the brim with photo-taking tourists. You actually had to pay to get into the rest of the church, which I'm always trying to save money, so it's something that really kind of turned me off. That didn't keep me from enjoying how beautiful the inside of the church was. The light was hitting just right through the stained glass so that it was coloring the church perfectly, and it was just a really amazing experience. And I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to know a little bit more about the history of this place. On the way back, we happened to stumble upon this really cool part that is just a way down to get to the river. This is what I love about traveling outside of the touristy parts, because this is just nothing super special, but it's something that I will definitely remember. It was so beautiful being able to see the other side of the river. There were swans everywhere and children and stuff playing. Small things like this is what really made Prague my favorite city in Europe so far. Then we went to the Sex Museum. Now, this was chosen by our group, so we got to go for free, so we ended up going in anyways, even though it was a little bit out of the way. Not my favorite thing. As I mentioned, Erasmus, I just didn't enjoy a lot of their picks. I mean, the concept was cool. It was just a bunch of extremely weird stuff. They had this theater where you could watch a film, a sex film from like the 1920s, and they must have picked the worst one they could. It was just disturbing. I don't even, just stay away from this place. There are so many better museums that you could go to in Prague. Don't waste your time here. The Sedlec Ossuary was our next stop. Now, this is the Bone Cathedral, and just more spookiness to add on to our trip to the Czech Republic. Again, one of the most memorable things about my trip, definitely something you have to check out. There was actually the bones of 60,000 people in this place. They were all stacked up into these unique pyramids. It was actually made by a half-blind monk way back in the day, and I believe it was disassembled and then reassembled a few hundred years ago. This is definitely a place you want to read more about, so I'll include more information in the description. It was severely creepy and eerie, and that's why I loved it so much. A lot of the people in our group took a look around and then left. For me, you don't really get to appreciate it if you do that. You really have to take the time and experience it. There was at one point where I just stared into the eyes of a skull. I could feel this energy that was there through these hundreds of years, knowing that that was an actual person. It seems like it's fake, like it's all just plastic. I left being able to say that I touched a human skull, and not many people can say that. Definitely not something for everyone, but basically the vision of this place per se was everyone is equal in the eyes of God. Really, I think, as creepy as it was, that message was sent through because there was no way to discriminate against person to person. It doesn't matter how rich or poor these people were, they're all in this place and they're all just decorations for you to view. So next we walked through Kunta Hora itself. Now this was just the cherry on top of the trip. Such an amazing and beautiful city. It really makes me wish that I wasn't only going to some of the big cities and that I could have the time to travel around and hit all the small cities. It really gave you a feel for what actual life is for people outside the city in the Czech Republic. We just had about an hour to explore. There was a huge grand church in the distance, but unfortunately we weren't able to have the time to explore it. It just felt very peaceful. It's a place where you would, have a family and where you could retire. I really want to try and in the future set out to hit some more of these places that are a little bit less touristy. And so that was our trip to Prague. It was an excellent experience. Overall, I cannot complain about Prague at all. If you are into nightlife and whatnot, then this is the city for you. There's a ton of creepy and spooky vibes, and it's just awesome to be in the city, especially in October. Definitely one of my favorite cities in Europe, and a place that I know I will have to go back before I die. It's a place where I could just spend hours walking around and doing videography work, and I wish I honestly had more time to just capture some of the beauty of the city. If you enjoyed the video, as always, make sure to like and subscribe to see more. And if you're watching this video, please comment some criticisms about the video. I'm always looking to improve, so just things that you would look for more in this video or things that I could do a little bit better for you. I want to cater this so that everyone's able to have the best videos possible. So yeah, I really appreciate you watching, and keep on having a great day.